All right, I have a little bit of spare time, so I thought I should probably go ahead and give a little bit of an update on my Berserk reading, because I read like what was it, like 6 volumes in the past couple of weeks. Probably more than that. I think I went from like 21 to 29. I'm on 29 now, so I've gotten a good way into the Falcon and the Millennium Empire arc. As a bit of a recap as to what happened, I read Conviction. I finished the Conviction arc and I hated it. I hated Conviction so much that even though I was like, I was going to continue reading the series, I was going to continue with it. I couldn't do it right away. I was so upset with the end of Conviction. It was just so irritatingly bad, right? There were so many aspects to it that I just felt like missed the mark and didn't really make a whole lot of sense and were just like not all that compelling. I just found Conviction to just be like the absolute low point of Berserk. And by conviction, I mean like the actual tower conviction aspect of it, not Lost Children, which was fine. So I had like a very big issue with like conviction, and one of the things that really stuck out to me as just being extremely irritating were like the side characters, right? There were so many like there was such a focus on all these like characters like Farnese that I didn't really care about at all, like all the prostitutes, like those random guy, like the uh the side characters got so much in Conviction that I was very, very concerned about like the future of the series. And I kind of mentioned this in my video, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're gonna hate the Falcon of the Millennium Empire arc because it's more of that." So, so I ended up like not getting into it for the longest time. And now that I actually have, now that I've actually like seen the beginning, the formation of like the JRPG party, now that I've seen like the dynamic between like this group and like what's going on, and like I can kind of see where people are coming from. Like I can kind of see what people are talking about when they say the characters are awful and stuff like that. But I do think that this is a big improvement over Conviction, right? I find myself like way more invested in what's going on, the occurrences, the events, like the build up to something greater. Like I feel like this is the best Berserk has ever been. To be completely honest with you, like there were some parts of this, like especially early on, when like they're establishing the new band of the Hawk and like going over all these demons and all the stuff Griffith is doing, where like I felt this was like the most hype aspect, the hype, the most hype moment in moments in Berserk ever, right? Griffith actually feels like a legit anime antagonist. Like I was actually planning on making a video talking about how I thought like Griffith was overrated and I thought like Makima was better, right? Going into like why Griffith kind of fell short for me and why I thought Makima was like a way more like a way more interesting, engaging, like malicious antagonist, right? Like I felt that Griffith just didn't really leave much of an impact on me as a reader up to this point. But like from the beginning of like the Falcon of the Millennium Empire arc, you really do get a sense that like this guy is like larger than life, right? You do get this sense that like holy crap, this guy is an amazing antagonist. And that's like the probably the first time I've ever said that ever, right? But you really do get this sense that this guy is just like this incredible threat, not just for Guts or even really for Guts in general, but like, the entire world in this sense, where he is essentially this messianic messianic this messianic how do you say it? This figure of like divine origin who's just so incredibly otherworldly and awe-inspiring that like other people just can't help but be in awe of him. It's so intimidating. It's so cool. I love it. I was just all over that. And we get some good build up for that, right? We get some new character introductions, and we do get the formation of like the JRPG party. We get like Shirk introduced, who honestly at this point feels like the actual protagonist, right? That's been something I've noticed for like the past like several volumes. Is it feels like Shirk has like more lines of dialogue. She's more prevalent. She's like more present. Like the conflict is about her. right? Essentially, and how she like grapples with her situation and stuff like that. Like I like Shirk a lot, I really do, but like it does get to be a little much, especially when like you compare it to how like Farnese was introduced and how like Serpico and like Isidro, like Shirk honestly has been given so much time and dedication. Like it comes off as a little bit I hate to say creepy, but it comes off as if Mira liked her more than the rest of the cast. Because like when I compare it to Farnese, like Farnese took so long to become interesting. Like Farnese was just not all that interesting of a character. She wasn't all that prevalent in Conviction, and then like she suddenly just becomes like part of the JRPG party, right? And now she's going through this like real character arc. Like I feel like in a lot of ways, Shirk's development is a lot quicker, and it works. Like I like her more than the than the other characters, but at the same time, it's like, well, what about everyone else? Like you have this entire cast of characters that haven't really gotten all that much development at all, right? Serpico got some good development early on. I think Serpico is like the focus of the first part of the arc actually, where we get some like Serpico and Farnese backstory, which makes both of them way more interesting than they ever were in Conviction. Like you get like Isidro is only just now becoming interesting in spite of being like the first character introduced in Conviction. I think you know like it's taken so long for like all of these characters to kind of become relevant and kind of form the Fellowship of Berserk, right? Which is way more hardcore than the actual Fellowship of the Ring. But it just it just comes off as if like it comes off as if like I don't know, like I really worry that Shirk might be fetishized by certain parts of the community. Like that's kind of like the implication I get from reading this is that like isn't the tone like kind of lighthearted for Berserk? Isn't like it's so weird. Like Shirk's background, it makes her come off like a stereotypical like anime protagonist. Like Shirk is way more of a stereotypical anime girl than like Guts is like anime protagonist. Like she has the same like setup of like, oh man, I was happy living with this person, but then something happened and I have to go on this journey. Like she's going through like more of a traditional like hero's journey arc than Guts is, right? With like the same thing of like, meeting other people and becoming close with them. And like it's such a weird like it feels very tonally inconsistent with what's happened up to this point with Berserk. And I think this is the point where like a lot of people kind of feel that we entered like the new Berserk saga where like it really felt like Miura lost his edge. And I can totally see why you would think that. But I have to wonder, like, is that really a bad thing? Like, it actually makes sense, honestly, for Berserk to not have the world be nearly as dark and gritty, like nonstop edgy, like the way it's been portrayed at this point. It actually makes sense that like not everything is completely terrible all the time. Like that always doesn't sit right with me with like products like Warhammer 40K where it's just like, oh, everyone is suffering all the time because the universe is just that cruel and malicious, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's not possible for there to be like no good things in the world in that sense. And I think I'm really struggling to come to terms with that. Like, is this shift in tone a good thing for Berserk or not? And I almost want to say it is because I always felt that like that the Golden Age in particular was way too try hard with like its edge factor and like trying to be dark and trying to like have this uh have this like sort of narrative that didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like you have this like padding with like wild. That's the thing I always go back to. Like, oh man, he bangs like six women at once. Like it's just okay. Like like it does feel as if this is a more removed part of the world from like the relevant aspects of like what's going on with like Griffith and stuff like that, which is still very dark and still has that edge. So like I have to wonder just what exactly where exactly are things going to go from here? I'm wondering just uh, I'm wondering what we're going to see next in the series. I'm wondering like how these characters are going to develop from here. I want Guts to be more relevant at this point. Like it really is kind of weird how like Guts feels like he's been overshadowed in his own fucking manga, right? Like, and I suppose that's kind of the point. Is that like if you're going to emphasize like how things are better now and how like Guts is fighting like his new like true companions or whatever like that, like he's fighting some kind of like peace or whatever. Like emphasize that aspect of it. Like don't focus so much on Shirk. Like I like Shirk, but come on, I feel like I'm definitely more invested than I have been in a long time. But I'm curious to think like, is this a good? Is this going to like? Do I prefer this style of Berserk or the old one? I honestly can't say.